Lockdown on Capitol Hill as violent Trump supporters breach barricades, bypass security, and break into the United States Capitol building. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Well, what was supposed to be a constitutional ritual quickly spiraled into chaos this afternoon on Capitol Hill, where a joint session of Congress was interrupted and remains on hold as violence has overtaken the Capitol. President-elect Joe Biden weighing in late this afternoon saying American democracy is, quote, under unprecedented assault. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchiner is following the situation. Tara, it is hard to believe the images that we've been seeing today are actually taking place here in America, the longest-running democracy.
You know, John, I think the right word is just chaos. Very surprising. The National Guard is on scene right now, and there are reports of at least one person shot that as rioters overtook the Capitol building, making their way into the House and Senate chambers. We are hearing reports they were shouting Trump won the election as they breached security. Protesters had guns out on the House floor. Of course, the House and Senate were in a joint session today, as we've been talking about, meeting to certify the election of Joe Biden as the next president, and that is exactly what pro-Trump mobs were protesting, creating the dangerous situation on the Hill. CBN News videographer Mario Gonzalez is at the Capitol, and I spoke with him a short time ago about what he has seen firsthand today.
I went up some escalators because I heard some ruckus, and I got up there and I saw, I'd say, upwards of about 8 Capitol Police that were all being attended to by medical staff, and I just started praying for them, and just the severity of what's taking place really just hit me. And so the police told me that we're on lockdown, the doors have been locked, we can't get out.
Now, the president has taken to Twitter to denounce the violence, but has not asked people to leave the Capitol, instead calling for rioters to, quote, remain peaceful, saying we are the party of law and order. Of course, John, tonight we have yet to see what that law and order is, if we're going to get that back, what the president is speaking of.
Certainly looks nothing like law and order. Senior Washington correspondent Tara Merchiner, thank you so much, Tara. Well, prior to everything on Capitol Hill, both the joint session and the security breach by protesters, President Trump addressed those very marchers in a speech outside the White House.
States want to revote. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we become president, and you are the happiest people. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country, because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
After that speech is when protesters and President Trump started making their way to the Capitol. Well, tonight, top congressional Democrats are calling on President Trump to demand all protesters leave the Capitol grounds immediately. That coming from Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. A similar appeal tonight from across the aisle. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has the response from Vice President Mike Pence, who's been at the center of multiple events unfolding on Capitol Hill today. Ben?
Yeah, John, Vice President Mike Pence says the violence and destruction taking place at the U.S. Capitol must stop, and it must stop now. Pence tweeted out, peaceful protest is the right of every American, but this attack on our Capitol will not be tolerated, and those involved will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. The process for counting electoral votes has been suspended, as Tara and John reported, but earlier today, Pence said it is his job to open and count electors' votes. In a letter to Congress, Pence said, "It is my considered judgment that my oath to support and defend the Constitution constrains me from claiming unilateral authority to determine which elector votes should be counted and which should be not." President Trump pushed back, tweeting, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, given states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify." Now, the vice president's 3-page letter was released minutes before he presided over the joint session of Congress. It's there the state certification read-off began in alphabetical order, starting with Alabama. But when it got to Arizona, more than half of House Republicans challenged the results.
I rise today to object to a number of states that did not follow the constitutional requirement for selecting electors. Madam Speaker, this is something that is clear that our founding fathers debated about as a fundamental decision of how we choose our president.
Now, objections in writing allows 2 hours of debate in both the House and Senate. Clearly, that time was cut short because of those protests. 13 Republican senators also opposed the elector vote in Arizona, including Senator Ted Cruz.
The Electoral Count Act explicitly allows objections such as this one for votes that were not regularly given. And let me be clear, this objection is for the state of Arizona, but it is broader than that. It is an objection for all 6 of the contested states to have a credible, objective, impartial body hear the evidence and make a conclusive determination. That would benefit both sides. That would improve legitimacy of this election.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says there cannot be a double standard. He said, quote, "The voters have spoken, and if we overrule them, it would damage our republic forever."
My colleagues, nothing before us proves illegality anywhere near the massive scale that would have tipped the entire election. Nor can public doubt alone justify a radical break when the doubt itself was incited without any evidence.
The Congress does not determine the outcome of elections, the people do. The Congress is not endowed with the power to administer elections. Our states are given that power. By the end of the proceedings today, it will be confirmed once again something that is well known and well settled. The American people elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be the next president and vice president of the United States.
Now, when the joint session of Congress resumes, they'll pick back up the time for Arizona, but we were also expecting objections for both Georgia and Pennsylvania. John?
All right, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Thank you so much, Ben. Well, Regent University's Brad Jacob with the School of Law joins us now. Brad, it's easy to forget some of the specifics that Ben just mentioned regarding that joint session, which eventually will reconvene. So let's stay right there for a moment. From a constitutional standpoint, did the vice president make the right decision today when he made that statement?
Absolutely, he did. The Constitution says that the vice president's role today is to open the certificates, and then they get counted and recorded. There is a process under the statute where a senator and a representative can challenge a particular state. We've seen that start to play out in Arizona. But the vice president is not given any substantive role to decide what's good or bad about any state's electors. He's just there to supervise a process which is usually kind of pro forma and not much of an event.
4 years ago, Democrats tried to slow the process, if you will, for President Trump. But historically, we've not seen anything like this before in our nation as it comes to these actual debates that had been suspended. Have we seen anything like this before?
Not really. I mean, occasionally there will be a representative or two, a senator or two over the years who have stood up and said, I object and usually nothing comes of it. If there are a senator and a representative together who object to any particular state, then the statute requires that they adjourn the joint session. The House and the Senate meet separately, and they can spend up to 2 hours debating that objection, and then only if both the House and the Senate vote to reject the electors is there an issue. Otherwise, they just come back together and keep going. That's what was starting to happen with Arizona when the rioters came in and the building had to be shut down. So this whole what's happening today is clearly without precedent on this scale.
President Trump has maintained, along with his supporters, that there is widespread fraud. What are the concerns about voter integrity moving forward from what the founders intended in our election process?
Well, it's hard to draw direct analogies because voting was so different back then. Now we have, electronic voting machines and vote counting machines, and things are so different. I don't think anyone really disagrees on the principle, which is we want to make sure that everyone who is legally entitled to vote votes and no one else votes, and nobody votes more than once. So clearly out of this election, one can hope that the parties will come together and work on better processes to make sure that the next election that comes around, there won't be room for people to make arguments, at least not on this level.
The rioting and the violence that we're seeing on Capitol Hill, some have blamed some of those who are involved in the objections, whether it's Senator Hawley, Senator Ted Cruz. Where does the fault lie, do you think?
Well, I'm a constitutional lawyer. I'm not in much of a position to judge these folks. Obviously those who are objecting feel that it's in their best interest to do so. Would it have been better for the country to just say, at this point, it's all done, the electors have voted, there's nothing left that can be changed, let's let this process go smoothly and try to keep people calm? That certainly might have helped with what happened today. But, those who felt in good conscience they had to stand up and object, they have the right under the statute to do that.
Brad, I can certainly appreciate your attempt to stay in your lane. Brad Jacob with Regent University School of Law, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Well, turning to that Georgia election, Georgia official Gabriel Sterling says there was no evidence of voter fraud in the state's runoff election. It had a historic turnout with millions of Georgians voting early and more turning out at the polls yesterday. When asked who's to blame for what happened with a Republican vote, he pointed directly to the president for focusing on alleged voter fraud instead of supporting the runoff candidates.
When you say your vote doesn't count, then you have people who you've laid your hands on, say, these are my people, who say, don't come and vote. Then you spark a civil war within a GOP that needed to be united to get through a tough fight like this in a state that has been trending from the point of view of Republicans the other direction for years now.
One of the Georgia races is decided, with Reverend Raphael Warnock defeating incumbent Kelly Loeffler. Warnock will become the state's first black U.S. senator. The race Democrat John... My apologies. The Democrat John Ossoff and Republican David Perdue, that contest was also called this afternoon, with Ossoff winning by a narrow margin. Well, coming up, moving forward with faith in America after these historic times and what it means for Christians and the church.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
And joining us now, Robert Jeffress, pastor, First Baptist Dallas. Pastor Jeffress, thank you for being with us on such an unforgettable day. Pastor, earlier today, Southern Baptist leader Russell Moore tweeted, "This mob attack on our Capitol and our Constitution is immoral, unjust, dangerous, and inexcusable. What has happened to our country is tragic and could have been avoided." Emotions are running high, and I find it very telling, Pastor, that Russell Moore used the word mob.
Well, I think we've got to be clear and consistent as Christians on this. And I tweeted out a few moments ago, disobeying and assaulting police is a sin, whether it's done by Antifa or by angry Republicans. This is a sin. It is wrong, and we need to speak out loudly against it if we're true believers. The world is watching to see if we're consistent in our position or not. We were very quick and very right to condemn what happened earlier this year with the Antifa mobs in major cities throughout the country, including my own city of Dallas. We need to be equally vocal in denouncing this kind of violence when it's done by people we may happen to agree with politically. What they're doing is wrong.
Pastor, it is a good fortune that we have you here today. You've been a staunch supporter of President Trump. I'm sure you were disappointed by the election results. Regardless, there's a right and a wrong way to air your grievances. Is there not?
There absolutely is. And look, I have been probably the strongest pastoral supporter of President Trump there's been, and I continue to support him. But as a representative for Jesus Christ in this society, all of us who are Christians have to deal with reality, not fantasy. You know, 1 Chronicles 12:32 talks about the men of Issachar, who were people who understood their times and knew what Israel should do. If we are going to be effective in this world as Christ representatives, we've got to understand what's going on in our culture. And the truth is, Joe Biden is going to be the next president. He's going to be inaugurated on January 20th. And we as a church need to prepare for that so that we can be an effective Christian witness during that period of time.
Pastor, let's dial back a bit. You know, you, as we just talked about, you're a Trump supporter. There's Trump supporters out on Capitol Hill, just right up the road from here. How did we get to this point? Some of the things that we've seen today, I can imagine, like me, you thought you'd never see.
Yeah. Well, look, our country is divided, and I happen to believe Donald Trump is not responsible for the division in America. He has simply exposed the division that's in America. I think he refused to back down and roll over like other conservatives did. And when he stood up and pushed back, I think it gave conservatives the backbone to do that as well. And that's why you have such friction in our country right now. Neither side is willing to back down. There's nothing wrong and everything right with standing up for your beliefs, especially when they're biblical beliefs. But I think there's a line that we dare not cross, and I think it got crossed this afternoon in the Capitol.
Pastor, last question for you, and it's a two-parter. How should Christians be praying specifically in this moment? And then also, what's the prayer that you're praying?
Well, I wrote a book. You were nice enough to talk about it with me a few months ago called Praying for America. And I suggest 40 prayers for America for different areas of America's life. But I think the primary prayer for Christians ought to be that Christ would be glorified through all of this. The light shines brightest in the darkness, and I believe we're going to have a rough 4 years. I think Christian liberty is going to be assaulted. I think values are going to be perpetrated that are against the Bible, but this isn't a time to despair as Christians. This is a time for us to realize we have a marvelous opportunity to point people to Jesus Christ.
Pastor Robert Jeffers of First Baptist Dallas, thank you so much for your time and your words of encouragement today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, still ahead, another nation joins the Abraham Accords as the peace agreement grows in the Middle East.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Well, welcome back. The African nation of Sudan is the latest to sign on to the Abraham Accords. That makes a path for the nation to normalize ties with Israel. The Sudanese prime minister issued a statement about the agreement today. The Abraham Accords are the U.S. negotiated deals between Muslim countries and Israel. They're seen as a major foreign policy accomplishment for President Trump's administration. The Abraham Accords are named after the biblical patriarch Abraham, who is revered by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Well, to the coronavirus, the United States set another one-day record for COVID deaths Tuesday. The number of fatalities attributed to the coronavirus shot up to 3,775. Since the pandemic began, COVID overall has claimed the lives of more than 375,000 people in the U.S. and nearly 2 million people worldwide. Meanwhile, the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines in the United States has been slower than expected. Only about a third of the vaccines that were distributed to each state was actually given. Many governors are threatening fines if agencies with the vaccines don't get them into the arms faster. Healthcare workers and nursing home residents have been the top priority. Well, city officials in Louisville, Kentucky fired 2 more officers involved in last year's police raid, resulting in the death of Breonna Taylor. The city also hired the former chief of Atlanta to lead Louisville's police department. The hiring of Erica Shields comes after months of unrest over the deadly shooting of Taylor. Officials fired Detective Miles Cosgrove, who is accused of shooting Taylor, and Detective Joshua James, who sought the warrant that led to the raid. We'll be right back after the break.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Before we go tonight, we want to recap our top story about the security lockdown at the United States Capitol. Joining us back again is CBN's Tara Mergener. Tara, what are we learning now?
Well, John, about 200 National Guard troops are helping out at the request of D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser in hopes of finally ending this chaos. Some parts of Capitol Hill do remain on lockdown. In other places, lawmakers have already evacuated after those unprecedented and shocking scenes as protesters stormed the Hill earlier this afternoon. As you know, all this going down as they were in the process of certifying the 2020 presidential election, and those proceedings now are obviously delayed, and there is a 6 p.m. curfew here in D.C. tonight. John?
Tara, any reactions from lawmakers on Capitol Hill?
Yes, John, a lot of reaction, of course. Many calls to end the violence, including from President Trump, who took to Twitter just a little while ago asking protesters to go home. Take a listen.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this.
Now, earlier, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer released a short statement calling on the president to demand protesters leave. He did just there. Vice President Mike Pence, who was evacuated from the Capitol amid the increasing violence and protests at the building from Trump supporters who were storming the place and asking he, too, saying stop the violence. John.
CBN's Tara Mergener, thank you so much for that final update. Well, you can follow all of the story and the proceedings at cbnnews.com throughout the night. Thank you so much for watching Faith Nation. We ask you to pray, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.